Like I said, just to make sure this is what take the time to make sure this is what you want to do. And whether and we'll rather make sure you also figure out exactly what is the true reason you're starting this business. It could be you just
Yeah.
want to do it for a specific goal in mind to get something done, and then you're going to change your mind and do something else at that point. Or if you want something to be a long-term sustainable item of what you want. And remember, this is your business, but your business is going to affect other people, whether you want it, whether you think you want it to or not. If you got family members involved, they're going to be involved in this business, not by just because it has to be. I mean, not necessarily that they're physically, you've asked them to step in, they're still involved because you're involved. So it's this is a lifestyle change. If you do this and if it's done properly, this becomes a lifestyle change.
It does.
So as I said before, I know it doesn't sound glamorous, but make sure this is really what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And take the time to figure out to make sure that's really what you want to do.
Because there's no one else for you to call when it's your business but you. Everything from taking the money to the bank to mopping the floor, it's on you.
So I'm moving through the presentation, and I don't want anybody to think we're going too fast. If you have questions or you want to talk specifically to an item, put them in the chat. We'll bring them up. But we do want to move through it just to have enough time after we've gone through for your questions if you have them. One of the things we can do here at the Business Center is help you with writing a business plan. The SBA also provides a lot of resources around learning about what it is to write a business plan, what it should include, what you should think about as you write a business plan. And they even provide mock business plans or a template that you can follow just to make sure you fill your business plan with all the information that you should have in it. Before I let Dan, I'm sure has some good stuff about business plan, but I just wanted to say that the business plan is it's a tool for you to sell your business, but it is also a tool for you to use to grow your business and to think about how your business is running, to essentially plan your business, right? And it is the story of your business, or it should be the story of your business. Think about it as a story. Think about it as something that you want other people to read and to understand, right? It's not just for you. It needs to be written for other people, thinking about them reading and understanding what is your business about? What is it solving? What problem is it solving? Why should it exist? And why should you be the one solving that problem? You want to convince people through your business plan. But we don't want to get too deep into business plan because we do that on a whole thing on its own. But if you guys want to add anything related to business plan, just go ahead.
I always tell people your business plan is a mirror to your business. It's your representation. This is what you take to the bank. This is what you show whoever needs to see your business plan. As Nathaniel said, who you are, why you are. And it needs to be always up to date.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the primary purpose that most people come across a business plan is because they are feeling they need to have some money for their business. They've gone to the bank or someone and they tell them, well, show me your business plan. So then they come back and they try to put it together. That's the only time it really comes up in their mind. And that's not necessarily, in the true sense, it's not necessarily wrong either. That's probably how normal, how natural, how that's going to happen for a lot of folks. But still, I'll go a little bit beyond from what Phyllis is saying. I've always thought, in looking at this thing for 40 some years now, I've always thought that a business plan ought to be like a Bible for the business. It ought to be something. It ought to be something you come back every year, 18 months, couple years, whatever like that, and come back and say, am I still making sense what I said I was going to do? Or because you can find that, as Nathaniel said, not only, yes, if you're looking for financing, whether it's from a bank, whether it's from an investor, whether it's from somebody else, or however, even a grant situation you may come across that may be out there that has some bearing to you, you're going to have this thing put together because it's going to provide answers to questions you're going to be asked. You look at major customers, you will need this business plan possibly to answer questions from them. Major suppliers or vendors, you will probably have to do the same thing. You may be in the point down the road you want to add a partner on. Who knows? That can happen. So then, or some major key employees that you find you want to bring on to. You'll need that business plan a lot of times to help explain what the reasonings of what you're trying to get across in your business to these people. Now, this doesn't mean that you give a detailed, intimate, a very detailed and very personalized business plan to everybody you see under the sun. It could mean that it'll probably mean as life goes on, as time goes on for your business, as you grow and evolve, this business plan will become like a core piece of infrastructure data, whether it's electronic, physical, or whatever. And you'll be peeling off, I'll use a term, peeling off little mini business plans that you will present or address whoever's out there that need to know something that you've got to tell them about from time to time. So,
and Dan hit a key word. These people have to have, they should have a need to know. You don't show this to everybody.
No, you'll it's not scientific, but you'll know. You'll feel. I mean, there's always going to be. You'll develop that innate business feeling that's down inside you. I mean, you want to look at data. You want to listen to information. You want to pay attention. You want to be educated, but you're also going to have a sense of internal. If I can call it common sense, it's going to be there. That you're going to know when it's time to make a change, or when I do it. When I maybe need to deviate a little bit further or provide this, you'll have that feeling that this is going to be fine, or okay, if I go this route, or they're not going to be fine if I don't go this route. But so, I mean, there's software packages out there, there's templates and things. There's not one particular way on earth that you have to put this together, or actually how many pages it needs. It's all up to you what you feel you have to need to communicate. I mean, as again, Nathaniel said, we've got some more detailed programs that we can go into and other days and things on these business plans, but just brief mechanically, you have an area on there that you would describe the business description, the company description. I mean, how you came to be, why are you here? I mean, what's this business going to provide, the service and products it's going to offer, who it's going to go at, who it's going to target or be available to. You may have a section you wanted to talk about company location, based on what you're trying to do. If it's necessity, accessibility, zoning, regulations, infrastructure, if that's critical to to the customer market, how the business is set up along those lines. Marketing aspects, as far as talking about how you may price your products, how you may advertise your products, who are the targeted customers, competition, who that may be out there, whether it's direct or indirect. What I'm saying by that is a direct competition will be a core number of people or groups or organizations or whoever that are always going to be on your mind no matter what you do. Indirect competition could be anything like, for example, you have a McDonald's restaurant on the corner, you have someone selling a hot dog vending cart further down the street. Yes, that is indirect competition because you're competing for food, you're competing for a lunchtime situation. So, but indirect doesn't mean it's a necessity threat to you. So yeah, all those things will come into play. The market research, the background. I mean, what's the industry looking at? The trends and opportunities in this business, what looks like the national revenue figures are. And then if I'm seeing that, how can I find out my state or local county or where I'm living, how that filters down to what that is? Because that helps me develop income projections and things of that nature. Operation type data, who your vendors are going to be. You look at things like that. If there's personnel requirements, type of people you're going to need, what's going to be the job descriptions. I mean, what sort of training you may have to provide. Managerial roles, if it's more than you involved in the managerial aspect, who these people are, what they bring to the company, what their background is, what they're going to be responsible for, what percentage ownership they're going to have. All these things will be discussed, and then in a narrative form. And then from that, you'll go to your financial data, where you should have at least 3 primary financial statements, one being your income and profit and loss sheet, your balance sheet, and your cash flow statements. And again, there's more detailed things if we can go involved with those as well. But you may also want to have like a break-even statement that kind of breaks down when is the point that I've met my expenses that every money now that I start coming in attributes to my profit. And you may also want to have a source and use of funds if you're looking for outside dollars. That means you're looking at, I need $100,000 for this business. I'm going to try to get money from this source, so much from this source, and so much from this source, and so much I'm going to put in. I'm going to use this money. It's going to pay for equipment, so much for that, so much for housing, so much for marketing, so much for this, so much for that. So you try to lay out a picture, a financial picture along those lines. And maybe if you're borrowing financing, there may be some other additional, financial tools you may have to add, like amortization schedule to kind of break down your interest rates. But but there's spreadsheet data, there's calculation forms that can help put all these things together. And as I said, there's a lot of good software packages and things that are out there as well. But just, look at them all as a grain of salt. Take them and customize to make sure that fits what you want to have done. But yeah, that's what the business plan will be. Like I said, it's something that's, writing it is like pulling teeth. I know that. It's nothing that's fun to do. And it's really an ongoing process. It'll go on for the day the business it continues until the business is no more. But you will find that those that do take the time to make sure they really appreciate that and understand and try to address that are the ones that are going to find less headaches down the road and a better chance of staying on top of things when things do go bad. Because you can rest assured, if you're going to be in business, eventually time will catch up with you and something's going to go wrong. So that comes back to make sure, okay, how well you accept that. Are you ready for it? And can you still maintain and weather this business as it goes in its good times and its bad times?
Oh, absolutely. It all goes back to what we were talking about, making that plan, thinking about the potential issues, and also running those numbers. And in a business plan writing situation, you're going to find that you're going to ask yourself a lot of questions that maybe you hadn't thought about before, especially with a template or using a guide, because there's going to be things that you haven't thought about that will pop up. Another thing to do in that same strain is creating a budget for your business. Even if you haven't actually sold anything yet, you want to have the numbers run. And I think we've hammered this point down enough. We won't labor on this anymore, but a budget and a business plan kind of go hand in hand with that planning stage and knowing, is your business going to work? How is it going to work? And how am I going to make sure that it's going to work into the future? How am I going to make sure I'm paying off my initial investment? If I have a loan, how am I going to make sure I'm going to be able to pay that off? And so on and so forth.
And Nathan, I want to say one more thing before we move on.
Ahead.
And when you create a business, whatever community you live in, you've interjected yourself into that community. So it's wise to include yourself. Attend
there's your slide,
city council meetings, county commissioners meetings.
Absolutely.
Read up, because oftentimes that's where you can get great help. They have funding, they have assistance that will literally come out and do things for you. But you have to be aware of the availability, and you do that by inclusion.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Do the networking. That was you were on the money with that, Phyllis. Absolutely.
Thank you.
And that networking can be, it can be talking to your friends, sharing your business with your friends, getting them involved, start working on organizations like ours, like the Chambers of Commerce. Put yourself on social media, join groups, join associations. Even if it costs a little bit of money, you're going to find that money is well worth it through the connections that you're going to create, and be open to those connections. The networking side of it is, I would say, it's the foundation of your business. It's going to be where your clients are going to come from, where your friends, where your partners. It is well worth having the business cards ready, having them available, and getting out there and handing them out. Absolutely.
Yeah, and for a lot of folks that you have here on the program that are beyond North Carolina, I know which we are. So a lot of times you'll see us probably focusing on some of those. Unfortunately, since we're here, of course, sorry about that. But those that are out of the state, use that. If you see that screen right now, that can be that's a good little general template you can find, because you'll find there are women. Every state will have women business center programs. Don't forget that. They'll also at Small Business Administration, who sponsors the Women Business Center programs. The USBA will also have local district offices in every state too. Some states will have more than one. So definitely reach out to, take advantage of these things. Don't forget, you'll probably will have small business development centers, another SBA partnership program that you'll find tied within your state universities. You also will probably find another one known as small business centers, which are very small programs that are tied with the community college programs. That may be a little different word that may be from state to state, but it's the primary higher education program that the counties will have. So you'll have those programs out there as well. And then there may be, based where you are, there may be some additional state-based things that are going on, as the case may be. But as I said, take advantage of these resources that you can. Use as many as you can, as often as you can.
And even if they're providing, classes or webinars or the resource is a kind of educational thing, you also have the opportunity in that moment. It's obviously harder virtual, but if it's in person, that is a time for doing that networking and connecting with people that are like-minded, that are doing similar things. You never know who you're going to run into. 2 or 3 people may be the difference to your business succeeding. So be open to that. And throughout these organizations, you're going to find those opportunities.
Networking is so important, guys. Something as simple as when you're starting out, you may not have the funds to hire anybody, but use your resources. Go to your local college or university, get those interns. They will work hard for you because it's a part of them matriculating their degrees. Please.
Yeah, just remember that there's an old adage out there that people will do business with people they know. So and sometimes you can even carry it further out that people will do business with people they like. So developing the networked relationships are going to be very critical.
Let me stay here a second and just mention, because I know a lot of people are very interested in the subjects of certifying their businesses as a minority or as a women-owned business.
Or something else.
The networking portion of this, of your activities as a business owner, are going to be just as important as providing a certification of your business, if it's a women-owned business or if it's a minority or veteran-owned business. Because, like Dan said, people do business with people that they know. The same with the government. There's going to be somebody in there that's going to make the decisions, and you want to be able to connect with those people one way or another, and networking is the way to do that, through the Chamber of Commerce or through other companies that are already working with the government. If this is the case, that if you're looking towards those certifications, make sure that your business has been running for a time, you're comfortable doing business, you're making some money, and then it is time to think about how can you expand your business by working with the state. The state spends a lot of money. It's a place to get business. Obviously, it depends on the type of business you're running and how you're going to market that. But think about that as part of your growth plan. And after those first 2 years, look into those certifications and see how those are going to help you expand, even if it's just expand your network, add a little plus to your business.
That's a good critical statement, and that's probably a good stomach gauging way of looking at it, focusing around 2 years out. Now that doesn't has 100% gospel in our situations, but still in the long run, it pretty much ends up being the better along those lines. And that may be a little bit confusing to people too, when we're talking about certifications. That's basically as a marketing tool more than anything else. What it means, and it's primarily for federal or larger scale corporate or statewide or larger scale business to business procurement situations. That's really what it's good for. Again, whether or not, you may find, and those are broken down. Well, one good thing would be based on where you may be located, again, statewide, where kind of pay attention who is around you out there that are involved either public sector organizations, larger scale corporate groups, where they are talking about diversity, inclusion, supplier diversity programs. Now, basically, that'll be looking at the small business programs that they're talking about. They'll be trying to develop the agencies or larger scale organizations trying to develop their public purchasing mix with certain goals they'll have to build the small business community back into it, which they may have a program for small business goals. They may have one for women-owned business goals. They may have one for minority-owned business goals. They may call that word small disadvantaged business goals based on who's talking or who's bringing up. And then you will also find sometimes they'll go broader beyond that. They'll be looking at things with veteran-owned companies. They'll be looking at folks with physical challenges, physical disabilities, impairments. LGBTQ programs will be out there for some. Indigenous peoples programs are growing now from some that may be out there. So, and again, this could be broken down on local levels. County and local levels, state programs, federal and corporate purchasing. The primary rule of thumb that's going to be out there, no matter what these things are, anywhere they may be, the primary rule that's going to be out there is that the company would have to be at least a minimum of 51% owned and controlled by whatever individuals are claiming whatever these individuals are claiming, whether it's minority owned, women owned, whatever the case along those lines. So yeah, that could be again, like I said, it's predominantly a marketing type program, especially if you're wanting to expand or grow within public sector activity, larger scale corporate activity. Again, you probably, if you're really pretty new, within a year's old or something like that, under 2 years, just know it's out there. You can be looking at it, but don't expect it to do a lot of extensional help for you until you get beyond that threshold for that purpose. But again, like we've got other programs, other meetings, additional counseling we can do on those lines, help you understand and kind of figure out and see how that makes sense to you. It doesn't make sense to everybody. Not everybody needs to go after that. Not everybody needs it. So, and then not everybody needs to do all of the various options of it at one time either. So but it's a marketing tool that'll be out there that you can definitely be working to take advantage of.
Absolutely. We're not going to stay too long on this funding. We do have a class on funding, and we generally partner with a somebody that funds businesses like a bank or a credit union or a CDFI. But make sure that's in your plan, in your initial thought process. How are you funding your business? The basic way to fund a business, like it says in this, 75% of businesses get started with less than $5,000. Usually that's coming from your own pocket or from your friends and family. And it's probably the primary place you're going to get money in the beginning for your business is going to be yourself. Generally, you're not going to get a loan until you've been running your business for some time, usually about 2 years, and you have a tax record and you have business credit, which is basically your taxes. So think about what you're starting and how can you start it with what you have right now. That may be scaling way down. It may be starting slightly differently. It may be starting with a business that will become what you want it to be. But at this time, you're starting with something very small. Instead of the restaurant, you have the hot dog stand, and you move up. There's also less regulation, less licensing, less inspections, less initial investment. Think about that in your initial plan and figure out how you're going to sell this to get that money if that is the case. If you have to have money to start the business, how are you going to get that money? Let's move on along. I'll just throw this in there. There's a very good resource related to your name, which is Google, right? If you haven't registered your business yet and you have a name in mind, make sure you Google it, make sure you look for it on social media and see if there's other people with your name, because today a business is usually going to be Googled or looked for on social media. And if it isn't easy to find, or if there's a lot of other businesses, even in other parts of the world, that have the same name, it's going to create confusion. It's going to draw people away from your business. Make sure that that name is something that you've thought very carefully about You've researched it and you made sure it's available. Once you know it's available, protect it. Register it with the state if it's the case, if that's how you're doing that. If it's an LLC, make sure you put that registration for that LLC. Buy a domain name if you need a website. It's not expensive and it's well worth having. And research if you need to trademark that name. You may not need to in the beginning, but it's always something to think about. It's something to be prepared for and to investigate. We recently did a trademarking and copyright class. It was very good. The information is out there. You can watch the recording, or you can get a lot of this information from the actual USPTO website, the U.S. Trademark and Copyright Office.
Nathaniel, could you put that in the chat, please?
The contact information?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Also, remember too, if you're having to when you're looking at the Secretary of State's registration, remember when you go through the registration process of setting your business up, don't forget this isn't a one-time thing and you're done. You have to keep this business in good standing. You'll have to come back every 3 or 4 years, and which they'll ask you to do that, to update and make sure that you're any changes in any additions, anything that needs to be reported. I mean, you've got to, like I said, you have to. They'll contact you. Well, actually, what they'll do, they'll contact you on an annual basis just to double check and make sure how things are in the business. So you got to keep your corporation status up. You have to make sure you stay in good standing. If you don't, if you file your proper reports that are requested of you, you can get dropped. Your company's dropped. Then you have to start the process all over again. And so there's always stay abreast of the various requirements of what you're going to have to do.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. Once you register that LLC, you have to renew it. You have to do your report. So make sure you're prepared for those. It's not expensive. It's $100. Did you mention this? $125 to register the LLC.
No, but that's what it is.
You got a $200 renewal fee, and you need to report it. Report what you've done with your business. It's a simple report, but you have to.
Now, Nathaniel, could you share with them possibly what happens when you don't renew?
Well, your business will be out of effect. It will be gone. Somebody will be able to find it, but it is not a business.
Not anymore. A viable business on paper.
And if you have any issues with it,
and you better not be operating it, Brian.
Exactly.
You better not be operating it during the case if that's happened, because then you can get into legal and financial trouble, and until you get yourself straightened back out again. But now one thing to keep in mind too. I mean, I got to grant we're not attorneys, but one thing you do keep in mind is your LLC or corporate status fees will be at least $125, maybe a little bit more for corporate status that you'll have to pay for the state. Some people still go around a lot of times and will register like these out-of-state setups where they may get registered through the state of Delaware or some other places. Now, North Carolina, if that happens, that's fine, dandy, you can do that, but North Carolina will consider you a foreign corporation. So you'll have to register as a foreign corporation in North Carolina, as well as filing your corporate status that you did for that purpose. So you'll be paying a lot of extra money. If where you were, I mean, if the action of what you do is within the state, that's probably an expense. You've overdone something you don't need to do.
There's a question, a hand raised, so I'll let you, I don't know if you put it in the chat or if you want to just come off mic.
Is that Yolanda?
I don't see the name. It only says iPhone. So, but I have a few questions. Let me just address
those. I was asking him to repeat that. You have to renew what?
Oh, so when you register your LLC, you'll pay $125. Your LLC will begin to exist. And then yearly, you are going to pay a $200 renewal for the LLC to continue to exist.
Yeah.
So it's basically it's like a maintenance fee.
$250. It's $250 in New York.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that is something that changes state by state.
It'll vary from state.
That is something that will be changing. But if you go to your Secretary of State website, for your state, you will find out all that information. Let me just check these. There's a couple questions. It says here, what is the best way to structure a business if you have multiple businesses so everything can be under one umbrella? Do you want to address that, Dan?
Well, if you go those routes, well, first I'd want to know, are these, if you have numerous businesses or several businesses, are they compatible? And I may not be the right word, but at least are they kind of, one is kind of related to the other, that's related to the other, or are they like here and there and everywhere, and they're all over the board? Because that's, if you can kind of stay sort of where one is sort of comparable or complements the other, and it helps you a little bit easier. It really means you'll probably be best to get legal consultation for that, because you would probably want to come back and set up like an overall umbrella corporate structure for this business. In other words, like Spurger International or Spurger Incorporated, and under that you'd have 3 or 4 different businesses, but they're all sort of like under a major one, a central conglomerate. But you really need a corporate, probably one that's involved in corporation background to set that thing up for you properly.
Yeah, you definitely want to get legal counsel for that.
You'll need to do that, and it also means you'll need to look at insurance. I mean, the insurance liabilities very closely. I mean, what's going to be required for that. I like it, and what I was trying to get at earlier, if the businesses are, as I said before, complement or comparable or kind of harmoniously mixed with each other, then it makes it easier to go to run a situation like that than if they're all over the place. But I mean, it is done. Businesses do that a lot of times. You might find, I mean, they're but it's not uncommon. It can be done, but don't use anything. Don't just use it. I mean, don't try to do it on your own. Don't try to go through anything like hope nobody's on the site of legal Zoom or somebody like that to do. No, go through, get you some detailed attorney assistance to setting that up.
Absolutely. The question that she was mentioning also is transferring a business from, say, New Jersey to North Carolina. Would she close one of the businesses, like say the New Jersey, and open a new one in North Carolina, or can she transfer the business over to the next state?
Well, really, you would still kind of be closing it out you'd still be closing out if you did that. I mean, if you're no longer going to be operating in New Jersey, if you're moving down here and that's where you're going to be, just close it out. And the Secretary website has actually, they've got some detailed discussion on things like that on their website. Yeah, and they're a good source to go for. They're a great source to go to help answer that question too.
And if the question isn't answered in the website, call them up. I mean, that they exist for this kind of stuff. It's always a good idea to call and ask the questions to the institution that is going to do this process. And generally, they'll have somebody that's available.
But if you say you were okay, I'm going to do a hypothetical for one right there with what you just asked. If you're going to set up one in North Carolina, and let's say you want to keep your one in New Jersey, let's say you want to do that, which means you have business A and business B over here. Then that's back to the other person's other question. Yes, then you may want to set up an overall umbrella setup that would cover that, because you're operating multiple businesses in multiple places.
Libby, there's a hand raised here. Let me give you a chance. I think it's Camedy. Is that right? If you can come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, my name is Camille. I was wondering if you don't have any funding to start your business at all, and you need like grant or loan. How do you go about getting it? I live in New York, so I don't know how to do that.
So, well, that's complicated. To get a grant, you need to have a business running. Generally, you're not going to get business start grants unless you have an excellent idea and there is a grant in your area that's specifically for that purpose. Grants are generally something that is highly specific to a region, to an area, to a city, or to a type of business. They're generally not going to be. Yeah, it's going to be something from New York for a New York business. You will need to have a business set up. You register an LLC. Sometimes a grant is specifically for a minority-owned business. And so in those cases, they're generally going to ask for some kind of past in the business.
That's really not going to be, it will still be, it may be out there, but it's still going to be hard to find. If you're looking, I mean, all I can tell you, looking for grants, I've been working through the Women Business Centers for 3 years. I was with Minority Business Development Center programs for 32 years before then. And I've never yet seen grant number one that is set out there for the sole purpose of starting up a business. Grants can pop up from time to time because they provide a certain assistance to a certain activity you're already doing in your business. If you're involved maybe in childcare, you might can get a grant for personnel training, for food nutrition subsidies, for playground equipment, and things like that. And some other businesses can do similar things like that, workforce development, but never for the purpose of starting up. That's basically going to come from 4 primary sources. Either you try to get debt financing, you try to get some person to invest money into the business that may be agreeable, or you see some relationship between the two of you, or family or friends, or something you've done along your loan. It means you're developing your business plan as detailed, as thorough as you can, and it's showing how much money, what investment you can put into the business. Basically, you've got to be able to show, as a rule of thumb, for every dollar that this business capitalized, whatever this project, let's say it's $100,000. Let's use that as an example. I mean, for every dollar that you need finance to get this up and moving, you've got to invest on your own anywhere from 20 to 25 cents. So that means if you had a $100,000 business, you had to have $20,000 you could develop directly put into it, and then you could be looking for outside financing from other sources for those purposes.
I always suggest, if you're starting a business, save some money. It's, again, we're going back to planning. Save your own money. If you see that you're going to need some financial help, I would look at my family. I wouldn't look at my friends, but I definitely look at my family, and I'd redo my own personal budget and put aside for startup money for my business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and granted, I mean, true right now, of course, I mean, we've all seen it out there. I mean, because of the pandemic, you have seen some of these grant programs that have popped up, these payroll protection programs, these economic injury. Somebody is offering a particular program that's out there. So yes, there are times when grant issues will pop up because of certain emergencies, disaster situations, some form of a national situation that arises. But remember, that's still a temporary thing. Because when it goes back to normal, things will be back to normal. So no, it's going to be, it will be still though. I mean, based where you may be living, I mean, do double check as hard as you can. Look at your state, look at your SBA offices within the state, see what your local community has in the form of financing available to its residents for small businesses. They may offer, like for example, the city of Fayetteville here in North Carolina does have a grant program for startup for businesses, but that maybe want to do work or put themselves within the central business district of the town. They have up to $5,000 to $10,000 they'll do to help you get your business up and moving. However, it's a matching situation. So if you're looking for $10,000 of grant money from them, you've got to come up out of on the other side of your pants pocket another $10,000 out of your money to match it against it. So there's always a give and take, and there's always another avenue. I mean, another story how these things are popping out here. So that still though, yeah, look and see where. I mean, and if we could help you start identifying or getting that process started to see what may be available in your state, we'll do that too. But I mean, do check and see why they do have it, what is offered there first. But as a rule of thumb, as most life's going to have it, as Phyllis was discussing, there's going to be primary 4 ways how the money will come to you. Either through the bank financing, family, friends, yourself, your own savings, or you may have an outside partner that you've come across that you all are meeting together and you see a mutual need and you're trying to get together.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let me
Can I ask you all a question right quick? Have we given you all information that you feel will help you?
Or have we scared
Yes.
you?
Okay.
Yes, you have.
Just want to know we're doing our job.
If you want to put some comments in the chat, go ahead. That's
I want to give you a nightmare.
That would be great.
so the structures that we've mentioned, let's just run through them really fast. The sole proprietor is basically, like I said before, if you have an idea, you're selling something, you are a sole proprietor. You can register with your county to be a doing business as, what we call a DBA, which means you have a name and that is related to your personal name. And that's the sole proprietor. It's basically you doing business and selling and paying taxes, paying your self-employment, which is Social Security and Medicare. There is a hand raised, so I will let that person ask the question before we continue.
Hi, sorry, I'm not a female, but I'm asking for my mom.
Welcome.
Yes.
As you said, like we can raise our own money to start a business. How much would you say is considered as, like, how much should we raise up, or how much should we have in order to start our own business?
Well, it depends on what you want to do.
How much
really.
money you need?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
Is that what you
so
said?
roughly, like for a small business.
for a business where you have to, well, I mean, it can be anywhere from that $125 to register the business if you're in North Carolina or whichever state, up to $250, sometimes a little more.
Yeah,
that's
that's
initial investment for registering the business.
And that's
And
where you
then-
kind of develop an initial budget too. I mean, what you develop kind of looking at. I mean, if what you're trying to start up a business, I mean, you're looking at data or statistical data research. You found out what may be involved in this type of business you've got, actual needs you think of equipment, supplies, certain requirements you're going to have, and actual quotes you've been able to get, or observations you've been able to put together from what you've seen around you. Really, and which are your best guess development. That'll end up being the best market that you'll have initially, because that's what you don't have no path. You don't have no business already going. You have no past track history. You have what you have. So I mean, at this point, that'll be what you've got. If you're able to determine that there are certain types of what you need for the business, maybe certain types of physical capital equipment that's going to be necessary for what you want to do, whether it may be vehicles or equipment or computer equipments or maybe a location or whatever. If you're seeing certain things like these, you're going to have whatever the value of those items are. It is probably prudent to you to add an extra 15 to 20% on top of that to allow for working capital expense needs that may arise, because those are about there as well. And you probably need to try to plan money that would cover you expense wise for, I mean, ideally will be up to first 6 months, but at least for up to 120 days, 4 months worth. Try to use that as a way to calculate it from that standpoint too.
I understand. Thank you very much.
And that's one of the reasons you want to start that budget, to know these things. You may find you can start with very little. You may find that you need to raise a lot more. So get that budget and start crunching those numbers. Corporations, we usually never recommend starting a corporation if you're starting a small business and you're starting, especially if you're by yourself, because a corporation requires a lot of reporting and it requires a lot more activity to maintain.
Yes.
So we generally will jump right to the LLC, especially if we're starting. You'll find that LLCs can be huge as well. So it's not really a size thing. It's more a reinvestment thing and an amount of people involved and initial investment, maybe. That may be the.
And I would advise, if you find yourself in the need of registering your business as a corporation, by the time you do that, please have knowledge of basic accounting. But I'm a firm believer when it comes to your business, no one should know something about your business that you don't know. When you look at that accounting spreadsheet, you should know what should be under your pluses and your minuses. I'll put it that way. You should know that.
Yeah. I have a question. I'm sorry. What if you have a job? Can you have a business and be working at the same time?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. If you can do it. I mean, yeah, but make sure you can. I mean, yeah, you can. Just make sure you can do it. it's going to get hard. It's going to get rough. But yeah, but again, a lot of times that's a prudent thing to do. Work for a while to help you build some money to put your ongoing plan, then use that money to apply back to the business as you get it ready to jump off itself. Yeah, definitely do that. One thing about where Nathaniel was on these structures, I mean, remember too, don't just pick a business structure as a fad or just because someone tells you to do one, or just make sure all of them have their good and their bad too. When he was talking about the sole proprietorship situation and doing the DBAs, technically probably the technical term, what you're going to have to do is go to wherever you may be living, go to your county registered deeds office, and you will file an assumed name certificate. That'll be the paperwork process you'll have to do to set that up and it'll set you up as business as Smith Jones doing DBA as so and so business name. They'll do a brief search to see if anybody has your name or have a name what you want to do. Odds are that'll never happen, but it is a formality that's allowed. It'll cost you, well, here in North Carolina, it'll cost you anywhere between $17 to $25 based on how urban or how rural, wherever you may be living. The states, and shouldn't be a major difference comparability from state to state outside beyond that. And then after those standpoints, you would look to larger scale for the corporate structures. Remember the management structures, whether they're limited liability corporations, whether they're corporate structures, whether they're S corporations or sole proprietorships, partnerships, whatever, it's really because it's to pay attention to personal and business assets, because that's the protection you're going to have. The DBA or the sole proprietor is the easiest form of business to get going. You can do that, and sometimes it makes sense for you to go ahead and do it right now. I mean, because of where you are at this point of life of your business. Just remember that there is no it boils down to meaning that business assets and personal assets are all for gain up on the table in the event it ever got to that point for some reason. When you begin with the limited liability situations and the larger corporate structures, those are where they start separating and keeping business assets and personal assets away from each other. But you want to make sure, based on your business situation and what you're doing at this point in time where you are, how critical is that to you at this moment? That's what you'll need to pay attention to. A lot of folks will maybe be a DBA or so ownership, and will look for this LLC here that's showing up as a future place. That's where they want to be. They can start off as a sole proprietorship and then reevaluate in about a year's time or maybe 2 years' time, and then try to move further up. If they see the business is getting to the point that they're worrying about it or they're afraid it will get out of hand, then that's a good time to go ahead and make a change.
So back to the LLC, just to finish that off, just like a corporation, the LLC is providing you with protection as an individual, something that a sole proprietor does not, and that's the main difference, really. And that is probably the main difference why you would want to start an LLC versus a sole proprietorship, is if you feel at risk of being sued, or for tax reasons, you feel that it would be good to protect your personal assets. So think about that when you're doing that. And an LLC is very easy to start, it's very easy to manage, and it just requires that renewal, whatever that is in your state, for you to be on top of that and whatever reporting is required. Let's move on. An LLC will require an operating agreement. That is kind of an internal document. It's not, nobody is asking you to have that, but you should have it, especially if you have partners or if there are other people involved in your business. And it basically states how the business is run, how it does its operations, how it fires, how it hires people, how it manages its accounting, its purchases, everything that the business does and how it does it should be included in this operating agreement. It is already 1 o'clock, so we're gonna continue just to finish out the presentation. Make sure we answer everybody's questions. It's up to you if you want to stay or if you can stay. We usually do these for an hour, but this one has gone on a little longer. But like I said, we'll run through this and we will provide everybody with the presentation, with the recording, and with other resources related to starting your business here in North Carolina at the end through email. So if you didn't register through Eventbrite, let me just throw that out there. If you would put your email address in the chat, I can send you all those resources later. Here's a question about if you want to bring merchandise outside of the US and open a business here, what can we do? So importing a product and then selling it in the United States, I assume is what you mean.
Yeah, whether or not is that for retail purposes or that for importing materials and items to go ahead and manufacture your product here in the States.
So you would have to have a business here in the United States, and then you would have to. There's some complication to that process, but it's mainly the right paperwork and the right permissions to transfer something from outside the country into the country, depending on what
because
it is.
You're going through customs, and you have to make you're going through customs issues and things of that nature. So, but even with that, another good resource to take advantage of, I mean, which we could help you tie into if need be, which is another related SBA partner program. Don't forget the Export Assistance Center programs that are out here. They're scattered all over. Every state will have one, or at least 2 or 3, or maybe 4. They're good for folks involved in exporting and export and import issues. It's a federal program that's sponsored through the Small Business Administration and the International Trade Administration of U.S. Commerce. So that's a good resource too for when things like that arise.
Yeah, for something like that, you want to go directly to that information. Go directly to the source. Find out what the tariffs are, if there are tariffs, what the paperwork is that they expect for that specific item. It all depends on the item. It's like finding licenses for cooking different types of food. You want to go specifically to what you're doing and what it is that you're going to be doing and what is required as far as licensing or permits or certifications or whatever it is. There's quite a bit of research that you can do on that subject. Let me move this. The EIN is the next step. Once you've registered your business, you need to get a tax number. We've talked about this a little bit. It's very easy on the IRS website. It is basically the Social Security number of the business. How is it going to pay taxes? What number does it use to pay taxes? And what number it provides to its employees for their taxes. Get a bank account. It is
not an automatic
It does not do anything
that
automatic.
goes into your business and pays your taxes.
No, it is not that.
No.
It is a registration with the IRS, basically.
To make sure that you pay your taxes.
Exactly. With the EIN and that LLC number or your DBA is when you're going to go to get a bank account. They're generally going to ask you for some kind of a tax number. You'll have a Social Security number, an ITIN, or an EIN, and you'll need that to open your bank account. And you'll want to have a bank account for your business, because if you want to be protected in your personal assets, you have to have your business has to have its own place for its assets, its bank account. Basically, that's where that separation has to happen.
Yeah, but the bank, based on granted though, the whoever your bank is and how long you've been with them, the bank may allow you to go ahead and use your Social Security number as an ID plate for that business until initially, but
for a while.
But that's the key word, initially, or for a while, or temporarily, because they'll start hounding you after a while to go ahead and get an EI number if you don't have one. But they a lot of times will be flexible and let you do that for a little bit. And the EIN number is no big issue, and it's nothing more. It's actually you go to the IRS. You can go to the IRS website if you want to do that, or you can go in person. But you just, like I said, the website is fine, and you just fill out an SS-4 form that'll go ahead and start putting that together for you. And
never complete one that's asking for a fee.
No, never do that.
Make sure you're on the IRS website. Yeah. Make sure anything you do of registering your business taxes, make sure you're always on a government website. It's generally easy to see that it's a .gov or that it is a government, in fact, a government website. You're usually not going to be on a .com for any of this stuff. We won't go into depth on these, but this is where the research starts to happen, is when you need to make sure you have your licenses for your business, if your business requires a license to operate or some kind of permit or a inspection for a restaurant, for example. There's going to be very hyper-local and very specific to what you're doing, local, state, and federal licensing potential. And so you want to do that investigation in the beginning. And if you're working on a short budget, factor that in, that time and the expenses related to those licenses, or just the amount of, because if you're going to take a long time to get these licenses, you're losing money. You maybe want to start smaller. Take that into account with what you're doing.
That's a good one.
Someone in the chat is
Yeah,
I see
asking
that.
if they've already applied for their EIN number and haven't heard back from the IRS, should they submit another application?
Not until you've tried to run them down as hard as you can.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Not until you've done that.
If you did it by paper, if you mailed it, it's I think they state 4 to 6 weeks, so you need to give it to some time. If you did it online and it didn't happen, there probably was an error, and it should have told you there was an error. If there was no error, then you're probably just waiting on them.
Yeah.
And you should use their phone number, call them, email them, ask some questions. You probably don't want to have multiple applications floating around.
She did hers by fax.
Yeah, that's
So there's a turnaround time for a fax. Yeah.
Yeah, but fax is also a potential for human error.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not trying to give you a Debbie Downer situation, but it is because that means that there was personal interaction involved with the fax. So probably. So I mean, there is a potential it got misplaced, but still give it. I mean, follow back up with them still. I mean, either way, just follow back up.
And if I were to submit it again, it would be after speaking with someone from that office.
Yeah.
Yeah. The home occupation permit is a quirk sometimes for localities, for a city or for a county. You want to check into it because it can be beneficial to you. It may be a requirement. If you work from home, if your business is out of your home, depending on that business, you may not be able to do that business out of your home. But generally, if it's a business, a service business, or you are working online, it's gonna help you with taxes, claiming some of the expense of being in your home. So it's going to relate to that. But you should research this by your city and by your county. If it's something they require, that's where it's going to be. But it can be beneficial in tax season. Insurance, we mentioned it already a little bit.
Yeah.
You're going to want to check into insurance, get some quotes, and definitely have insurance. It always depends on what you're selling, what you're doing, what you need to have, but at least general liability insurance is a good idea to have for almost any business. But you're going to want to do some research and do some shopping. Same with a bank account. Don't just go to your bank and get what they offer. Do a little shopping, see what you can get, what other services they offer, what is the best price. The cheapest isn't always the best, obviously, so make sure you're getting what you actually need, but research that and make sure you have insurance.
And guys, I'll go back to, it's really a lifesaver, especially when you're starting out, to utilize interns at the local universities. Oftentimes, internships will be, the insurance will be covered by the university, but only for a small window. But it's good to utilize the interns until you get yourself established.
That's an insurance you want to check into. If you have employees, if you have more than 3, you're going to have workers' comp insurance, and you may end up having other types of insurance. So look that up. Do not be in a business where you don't have the insurance to cover the people that work for you, because it can be very bad for you as a business.
That's true, and that'll come back based on how you, and that'll even ever how bad it could be for you will either be enhanced by whatever business structure you end up setting up for yourself.
Again, protect your personal assets.
Yeah. Right. And one thing with insurance too, don't forget, I mean, go through the extra trouble to do this, please. I mean, if you're working out of your home, if your business is there, you do everything there at your home, which is fine and dandy, or if you use your own vehicle for a lot of the business needs, we did see commercial. I mean, check with your insurance company to find out if by utilizing your own personal property or your own personal assets there, Do you need to add any extra protection on your existing home ownership policies, your automotive and policies, because you're utilizing those items for a portion of time in your business? If something happens, if there's a flood, a fire, a power surge, or something, or you get hit a bump up, and you've got business materials in the trunk of your car and you can't get them out. Okay, well, you're going to go through a process of getting your car fixed and repaired, but it doesn't necessarily 100% mean that those business items you had in that vehicle are going to be covered. So unless they know maybe that you're also utilizing that vehicle for that purpose. So you may need to add some additional rider supplements or things like that to your existing policies, just to make sure. I mean, just take the time and trouble just to find out for sure that you're okay and safe. Don't assume anything.
Yeah, be transparent, be open, use the people that you already pay as resources, and ask the questions. So we mentioned this already. We'll just run through this real fast. The key points to keep your LLC in good standing. Like we said, have a bank account, separate your personal from your business as much as you can. If you can separate vehicles and place of work, it's going to be better. You don't have to, like Dan said, but you want to think about it and make sure it's in your plan and it's something that you've considered. But mainly with the money, keep that money separate to protect your personal assets when you have an LLC or even a corporation. And make sure you file your yearly report. Make sure you update renew your license, your LLC, with the Secretary of State. And it's always a good idea, especially in the beginning, to take good counsel as far as accounting from a professional and as far as tax preparation from a professional again. Make sure you're not just going to your friend to prepare your taxes. They need to have a PIN number from the IRS, or they need to be an enrolled agent to do your taxes and to be able to fight for you if the case comes up, if somebody else is doing your taxes.
And that fight means they have to have knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people can do taxes, but they don't know the ins and outs, the whens and whys. They can't represent you. They're just doing numbers. But a professional will be able to do that.
Yes. All right. Let's move along. Make sure we got this all covered. Get a website. Do that networking and make sure your website is 100%. Spend the money. Sometimes you got to spend money for a website. If you feel that you can do your website yourself, do it. But at least have an online presence through social media or through Google Maps, for example. If your business doesn't need a website to sell, if you at least have a Google Maps presence, you can have your contact information there. You can have your address. You can have a lot of information through Google Maps for free, and it will show up in people's searches. It's a good way to optimize your search through Google, is using their services like Google Maps and having a presence there. But if you need a website for your business, which most businesses do, make sure that's something that you've thought about, you've budgeted, and you're starting that process. All right. So again, we are the Women's Business Center of North Carolina. Everything we offer is for North Carolina, and any help that we offer for anybody out of state, we're going to guide you towards local resources. Generally speaking, starting a business is very similar all throughout the United States, but check in with your local resources. We are here for you, and we are here to help you in what we can. The main way we help small businesses is by counseling them one-on-one. That way we can speak directly to your business and to what you're trying to do. So reach out to us. If you haven't put your email in the chat, I have your email through Eventbrite if you register that way, and I will send you resources that way, and you can get a one-on-one business counseling with us and talk about your business and start a relationship. Network with us. We are an option for networking. We're an option for just building relationships. Half of business
and all of our services are free of charge, people.
All of our services are free. Absolutely. I always forget to say that because it's
unbelievable,
all free, but it is. This presentation has our contact info, and it has other good information here. All the websites that you need to start your business are on this presentation. I will share those with you. And I hope everybody has a great next 2 weeks, the holiday weeks. Merry Christmas and good stuff in the future. Start your business in 2022 or start planning your business. Definitely take advantage of next year to do something wonderful.
And like next year, ladies, we're having our annual conference, Moving Forward with Purpose. I invite you all to register to come.
Yeah, some of these
You won't
people will be
regret
there.
it.
Yeah, we'll have in the conference, it's a great point. Most of the resources that are available in North Carolina, there's going to be somebody related to that at the conference. You can talk to them directly. You can get resources, take advantage of the speakers that are going to be available, and talk to us in person. Get that in-person experience going. We need to get back to face-to-face interaction, I think. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Phyllis.
In the meantime, have a Merry Christmas. Everybody have a Merry Christmas and eat all you want. And if anybody says anything about it, you find the proper words you need to tell them.
Absolutely.
Well, goodbye, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Goodbye. Nice talking to all of you.